The local currency has been extremely volatile. We're sitting at the 8 Rand handle right now. We've been talking about this quite extensively. A bit of good news that seems to be coming through from the ECB that we might just see more measures to loosen monetary policy in a sense, and also to ensure that there is more lending available to banks to avoid a liquidity squeeze. Is this going to have a positive impact on the local currency?
Sure. I think in terms of the local currency, dollar rand is going to be totally dependent on international risk aversion dynamics. So to that effect, the ECB announcing those liquidity measures will definitely help the rand. In the longer term, though, with growth prospects still seemingly low for across the world, there is a chance, though, that rand will continue to trade off a bid tone, i.e. higher. I think the trend is only the higher trend is only over once rand crosses the 780.82 level. But for now, I think over the medium term, it's still a bearish trend for the rand.
Were you disappointed that the ECB didn't make a decision to cut interest rates today?
I think it was largely expected that the ECB were not going to cut rates. They did, however, touch on the fact that they're deeply concerned about growth prospects. However, they also mentioned that they are still inflation targeters. To that effect, with inflation still around the 2% level in Europe, I think they're probably waiting for confirmation that inflation or for inflation to actually go lower before they actually decide.
Of course, we know the target is below 2% and it's still slightly above that, so exactly. That's an issue.
Their forecast is for inflation to actually start reducing in the next couple of months. So given that the market is actually pricing the first cut in Europe by January, if we see inflation start to actually come lower, or lower than expected, there's a chance that the ECB will actually cut.
What is your sense on the Bank of England's stance on further asset purchasing, this at a time where we see austerity measures that still need to be implemented, especially when you look at the 2012 financial period? What kind of scenario do you foresee occurring there? Because again, when we see this kind of decision taken, it's really admitting the fact that we're not seeing economic recovery occurring on the ground. Yeah,
I think it's exactly like you mentioned. We're not seeing any sort of economic recovery on the ground. And as a result of that, I think the BOE decided to go one step further in terms of the asset purchasing program to effectively provide that more stimulus that the economy actually needs. They did provide an extra £75 billion worth of stimulus. The result was that yields, or sterling yields, were substantially lower on the day, and that's actually had the desired impact.
Moody's downgrading Italy's debt, and of course negative outlook going forward. We also saw a little bit of trouble coming through from Spain in yesterday's session. The IMF has been talking extensively with European Union officials and ECB officials as well. Do you think that we are very close to a final decision being made on peripheral Eurozone debt?
I think the ECB, the general Eurozone community, are going to be forced to make a final decision on that. They cannot afford for Italy, for example, to default, etc. So to that effect, a final decision will be made, and I think in terms of an actual bailout package, and the market, if not soon, the market will actually force their hand quite soon.
With the rand trading at 8 to the US dollar now, we are of course at risk to seeing it strengthen down the line, and it's really also dependent on what we could actually see out of the US tomorrow. Of course, it is unemployment, and that's the big number that we're waiting for. Many expect it to still remain sticky.
Yes, the non-farm payroll tomorrow is absolutely important. Market's probably expecting that number to reduce somewhat. We had ADP earlier this week, which was on the upside, but that number is going to be absolutely key, and that will actually drive dollar rand forward into the next week. Like I mentioned, the actual 786 level is quite key. If we break that 786 level, it's very likely that the bearish trend in dollar rand will not resume.